Unconscious behaviors control our lives. This means that we are doing things without really knowing that we are doing them. We're doing them with little to no awareness of the fact that we are doing them. Not only that, but our society, number one, exploits our lower self, these sort of unconscious autopilot behaviors, and number two, reinforces them. Now, I want to give you a little bit of a list of exactly what I'm talking about here so you get a clear picture in your mind. Things like reactivity, avoidance, especially self-avoidance. This is a huge part of Western life. Numbing and distractions, addictions and cravings, automatic judgments, self-criticism, overthinking, compulsive habits, emotional suppression, things like this. Essentially ways of kind of coping with pain and avoiding it when in fact it needs to be faced, looked at deeply. Not avoided, but looked at with a compassionate awareness and integrated so that it's not, number one, being repressed, and two, we can kind of learn from it and actually evolve rather than staying stuck in the same patterns that create suffering. Now, essentially, our lower self is often in charge, which is a recipe for an unsatisfying life, and it does not need to be that. You do not need to be stuck there. Not that we're going to remove things like craving or desire for sugary, tasty desserts. Right? I'll be the first to admit that I love brownies. They're amazing. The thing is, though, is that you can develop yourself to the point where you do not get pulled around by every sort of little craving that you have. Just kind of one example. You can rewire yourself so that you are not always avoiding yourself. You can rewire yourself so that you are less reactive. There's ways to change. There's ways to become more aware. A lot of the things we're doing, like I said, they're on autopilot. And really think about this. This means that a lot of the things you do in your relationship, the reasons why you chose your partner and why you're even attracted to them in the first place, a lot of this is largely unconscious. Things about your sexuality as well. Right? A lot of your unresolved wounds and all this kind of stuff finds its way into your relationships and sexuality. Not only that, but your career, your diet choices, your daily habits that you do. A lot of this stuff was not like consciously formed by you, but it was just you kind of found yourself needing to do something, so you did it. There wasn't much reflection, wasn't much awareness for the most part. Not everyone, but for the most part. Not under all circumstances, but generally for the overwhelming majority of the time, yes, this is most likely true for most of you watching. And that's completely okay, right? There's no judgment about that. This is kind of just a big aspect of human life. Again, it doesn't need to be stuck like that, though. Like I said, there's ways of raising your consciousness. Our shadow, our unconscious, is controlling our behaviors. And until we make that conscious, this is a Carl Jung quote, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives, and we will call it fate. We're essentially like puppets on a string. We're avoiding ourselves, or we're pulled to something, right, due to forces that are not in our awareness, things that we don't really want to recognize about ourselves, things that we do not want to see, truths that we do not want to see because they might be uncomfortable. There's a lot of beautiful truths as well. There's a lot of uncomfortable ones at the same time, paradoxical. So our world reinforces unconsciousness in many ways. Constant stimulation. Look at this platform. Social media, right? Perfect example. Very strategically engineered to exploit people for profit. Right? It's that simple. Junk food, excessive screen time, consumerism and materialism, noise pollution, right? Poor environments, heavy metals are in the air, and all this kind of stuff. Chronic stress, lack of mindfulness practices, right? An overemphasis on multitasking, overemphasis on achievement, not enough emphasis on rest and just kind of being, reflecting, right? Our cultural values are actually throwing things out of whack, right? And we need to evolve our values to something that brings us back into balance, which we're slowly doing, right? Mankind evolves quite slowly. So you don't need to live like this, and I would bet deep down you don't even want to. If you knew the alternatives, if you knew that you could live more fully, you don't have to settle for a life that is you're kind of half living it, right? You're half asleep in it, you're half energized, you're not fully engaged in it. You really don't need to settle for that. And essentially, it's a lot of unnecessary suffering, dysfunction, and it's just unfulfilling. I mean, kind of like by its nature, it's unfulfilling. Because human fulfillment requires you to develop your full potential, and to just realize your potential, to realize who and what you are. This is extraordinary. This is profound. To realize the nature of yourself, this is profound. To realize the nature of this existence, this is profound. And you can't be fulfilled if you're chronically ignoring that. If every moment of the day you're avoiding, ignoring, suppressing, it's just not going to work out. This is a strategy that will only lead to suffering. Right now it's causing suffering, and this pattern will just continue and cause more and more suffering. And you don't want to be stuck in that, right? If I can just put it as clear as day for you, you don't want to be stuck in that. Right? You don't actually want that, but to change might scare you, and it might be uncomfortable, even though it can be the best thing for you. So until we become conscious, the unconscious controls us. This is a fact that we have to admit. And we make the unconscious conscious by shining our awareness on it, by choosing to turn towards it and face it and learn from it, to, let's say, feel grief or integrate shame or integrate anger or feel like aggression or our capacity to be aggressive, for example. Right? That one's getting a bit more advanced. But essentially, we're just doing deep shadow work. We're really looking at what are some of the things within our own psyches that we do not want to look at and we want to avoid at all costs, right? I have amazing books on this on my book list. Bringing Your Shadow Out of the Dark, To Be a Man, Emotional Intimacy. It's starting to rain here a little bit. But essentially, the point here is that until we look at some of these brutal aspects of our nature and who we are, they're going to control us, because they're going to be unconscious in the shadow and still influencing us from outside of our sort of awareness. And even if we push them away, they don't go anywhere. They just remain in the background, pulling our strings, pulling us towards that attractive person and maybe to that food and to that circumstance. We don't really know why we're doing any of it. We don't see the parts of us that are influencing our lives. Right? And by parts, I mean our subpersonalities. Your mind isn't just this sort of like one thing. I hope the audio is not getting, really messed up from the wind. So your personality is actually made up of various sub-personalities. You have a lot of different parts to you. You're very dynamic. Different energies, different beliefs that can run contradictory to each other, almost like multiple selves for the most part. You can check out things on my book list like No Bad Parts, the work of Richard Schwartz, Hall and Sidra Stone, all very good. So the behaviors that I listed earlier, right, see what drives them, reconnect to those aspects of yourself that are driving them so that you're not a slave to them. Because the second you start to make them conscious and you don't judge yourself for them, but you just face them and hold them with a compassionate awareness, you're able to meet them, right? You're able to meet a part of yourself that was never properly met, part of you that you've been neglecting over and over and over again for years, right? If you're older, for literally decades, right? And again, every time something brings that part up, there's pain there, and you got to avoid. You're just kind of stuck in these sort of reactive unconscious patterns that are not, they're just unfulfilling. It's just not comfortable to live that way. It's just dysfunctional. And the moment that you can realize that, the moment you can admit that to yourself, the better. A bit of a brutal truth, but I'm really trying to do you a favor here. So regulate your nervous system. This is such a good place to start off, right? A lot of us stay in states of fight, flight, freeze. We don't even know it. Things like meditation, spending time in nature, eating healing foods, for example, not overeating, getting off your screen, yoga, stretching your body, exercise, drinking enough water, sleep, right? Basic stuff, right? Meditation, right? I said mindfulness. Learning to be in your body, keep it at ease, not always hold tension in it, to breathe. Simple stuff, but most of us can't do this, right? We haven't practiced. We don't really know ourselves, right? We don't know ourselves deeply. Always avoiding ourselves, holding our breath. We're tight, we're rigid, we're tense in our body. Right? What's going on there? Why are we doing that? So you need mindfulness of your thoughts, emotions, impulses, cravings, feelings, sensations, etc. Without mindfulness, the shadow remains in the dark, remains unconscious. And we have to bring that out if we really desire deep change, if we really desire to have deep psychological, like structural changes to our psyche so that we have lasting change in our lives. It's not a surface level fix. So you need to willingly investigate yourself with compassion, with curiosity, with courage, with presence, with patience and kind of return to this over and over and over and over again, right? It'll be a challenge, but that challenge kind of puts you on your edge and it wakes you up, right? Have you ever been in a moment where you're experiencing some kind of challenge and the moment pulls you into it fully, maybe in sports or whatever, and you're like focused, you're completely focused on what's happening in front of you, right? Same thing here, where the challenge can get so intense, right? But simultaneously not beyond your limits, and it starts to pull you deeper into the moment, deeper into yourself. So learn to not judge the aspects of yourself that you've pushed away, neglected, avoided, harmed, abused, etc. Right? And kind of by default, if we're doing that, we're judging them. We think they're bad, we don't want to see them, we're ashamed of them, and we're learning to kind of undo that conditioning, undo the idea that there's parts of us that are bad. We're bad. Just kind of undoing that bullshit sort of like moral philosophy, just looking purely at the aspects of ourselves, the feelings they have, the needs they have, learning to just take them seriously, learning to just kind of see ourselves more clearly without all the overlays, right? Without all the stuff that we kind of project onto our experience, just kind of what is it directly. So essentially, we're working to reclaim all of ourselves. We're working to reclaim every single part of us. And by doing this work, we actually naturally start to feel more whole. We recognize our natural wholeness. And when we don't do this, we feel fragmented, we feel disassociated, we feel like we're disconnected. We don't feel like we're actually living up to our full potential. We feel like we're living life half asleep. Like the days are kind of just going by. You don't really have any reason to be here. You could die and it doesn't really matter. And again, it just doesn't really need to be like that. So we don't need to live like that. We can realize our natural wholeness. We can realize our nature. And in order to realize our natural wholeness, we have to shine attention on all the parts of us that we don't really want to shine attention on. Usually, right, I'm kind of sticking to some of the more brutal aspects of ourselves in this video, but usually the stuff that we don't shine attention on is the stuff that makes us uncomfortable, the things that we've been shamed for, embarrassed about ourselves in the past, the things that have brought us discomfort. And not only that, but when we cut ourselves off from that, we cut ourselves off from being open, from deep pleasure, deep engagement with life, deep fulfillment, deep joy. We cut ourselves off from both because we're too busy protecting ourselves and we're afraid. We're too busy keeping those aspects of ourselves trapped. We actually invest our energy into repressing them. And how are you going to experience joy when you're putting your energy into repressing aspects of yourself? You're putting energy into internal conflict, which is kind of the exact opposite of joy. Joy is freedom from internal conflict. Real happiness is just simply freedom from internal conflict. It's that simple. So we can integrate our lower self, shine awareness on it, and break free from what doesn't serve us. This is possible. I'm not going to say this is going to be easy or a 5-minute or even 1 year thing, although you can make a lot of progress in 1 year. But essentially, I'm kind of giving you a project for the rest of your life here. Not something that you just kind of do for a month and it's kind of cool, but like, I'm trying to shift your consciousness from this date until you die. I'm trying to kind of give you a vision for how to structure your life, right? Some core driving forces behind what you're doing. Raising your consciousness. See what that does for you. You'll find out that it's really valuable. That instead of shutting down parts of yourself and then you're losing your energy, it's draining to do this. It's actually exhausting. Right? You actually feel more alive. You can feel your natural wholeness. That's it for this video. If you're interested in working one-to-one with me, you can apply to do so. I'm doing one-to-one coaching. We can get pretty deep into this kind of stuff. So that's it. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. Take it easy.